The film begins in the year 1897 with a scene showing a sailing ship that had been transporting goods from Romania to England, now stranded on the shore along with 50 wooden crates. This ship, identified as the Demeter, is inspected by the lighthouse staff. They find no survivors on board, but they do discover the captain's logbook. Curious about the fate of the crew, they begin reading the captain's log to uncover the mystery behind their disappearance. The story then takes us back to an event that occurred 4 weeks earlier. A group of men arrives at the port of Varna in Bulgaria, bringing a shipment of wooden crates bearing the mark of a dragon to be loaded onto the Demeter. Since the Demeter is short on crew members, Captain Elliot and his first mate, Wojciech, prepare to recruit a few more hands for the voyage. As they are preparing to hire more crew, Wojciech encounters Clemens, a man with a background in Cambridge education, who tells Wojciech that he is a doctor and requests to join the crew. However, Wojciech rejects his offer and instead hires 3 other men for the ship's crew. Later, the ship's crew asks the men who brought the crates to help load them onto the Demeter, but they refuse and leave. As the crew continues loading the crates and other goods onto the ship, one of the newly hired men becomes frightened when he sees the dragon symbol marked on the crates. In his panic, he loses control of the crate he was handling, and it slips toward Toby, Captain Elliot's grandson. At that moment, Clemens intervenes and saves Toby. The frightened crew member, declaring that the symbol is a bad omen, quits and leaves. In gratitude for Clemens's quick action, the crew hires him to take the departing man's place. As Clemens boards the ship, the Demeter sets sail from the port. Toby takes Clemens on a tour of the ship, showing him around. That night, as the crew is enjoying themselves, singing songs and relaxing, Captain Elliot confides in Wojciech, telling him, "This will be my last voyage, and after I'm gone, I'll appoint you as the captain of the ship." Later, while the crew is having dinner, the ship's dog, Huckleberry, starts barking after hearing a strange noise. Concerned, Elliot tells Toby to check on the animals in the hold while they continue their meal. At that moment, Clemens accompanies Toby to the hold. As they descend, a wave strikes the ship, causing one of the crates in the storage room to topple over and break open. Upon investigating, Clemens discovers a woman inside, barely alive. He quickly begins to treat her, performing a blood transfusion in an effort to save her. Afterward, he leaves Toby to watch over her while he heads to the helm, where Ulgarin is steering the ship. Ulgarin hands over the helm to Clemens, who begins scanning the sea through the spyglass. As he surveys the waters, Ulgarin spots the face of a strange creature through the spyglass. Later, Huckleberry, the ship's dog, sees the shadow of some creature and begins barking at it. The creature attacks Huckleberry, killing him. Joseph finds the dog's lifeless body in the area where the animals are kept. Upon further investigation, he discovers that all the animals have mysteriously died. When the crew investigates the cause of the deaths, Ulgarin declares that it must have been the work of a powerful demon. Later, the crew gathers to dispose of the dead animals by throwing them overboard. One night, while the rest of the crew is asleep, Petrovsky stands watch on deck. He hears a strange knocking sound coming from the ship's hull and goes to investigate. What he finds is a bizarre, starving creature with a human-like appearance. Suddenly, the creature lunges at Petrovsky, sinking its sharp claws into his neck. Severely wounded, Petrovsky stumbles in pain, but the creature leaps onto him again, draining his blood. Clemens, awakened by the commotion, rushes to the deck. Seeing the blood splattered across the deck, he sounds the alarm with the ship's bell. The next morning, as the crew discusses Petrovsky's disappearance, Anna approaches and insists that they must abandon the ship. Despite searching together, the crew is unable to find Petrovsky. Later that night, while Clemens is treating Anna, he asks her what happened to her. Anna reveals everything to Clemens, explaining the strange creature she encountered. She identifies the creature as Dracula, telling him about the terror he brings. That night, a stormy one, Ulgarin and Larson are on the deck when they hear knocking sounds coming from the ship's hull. As they go to investigate, Dracula attacks Larson. Witnessing this, Ulgarin desperately climbs the ship's rigging to escape. The storm awakens the rest of the crew, and they begin searching for both Larson and Ulgarin. They eventually find Ulgarin, and Clemens treats the bite-like wounds he has sustained. With growing fear, the entire crew arms themselves and conducts a thorough search of the ship, preparing for whatever might come next. As they search the ship, Captain Elliot joins the crew, but leaves Toby in his cabin, instructing him to knock on the hull if necessary. While in the cabin, Toby hears a strange noise and steps outside to investigate, only to encounter a distorted, monstrous version of Ulgarin. Terrified, Toby rushes back into Captain Elliot's cabin, locking the door behind him. Ulgarin begins banging his head against the door, trying to break in, and Toby, overcome with fear, crawls under the bed. Meanwhile, Clemens and the others on deck hear the knocking sound coming from the hull. When Ulgarin momentarily stops trying to break down the door, Toby crawls out from under the bed. At that moment, Clemens and the crew arrive at the captain's quarters, but Ulgarin attacks them. Captain Elliot rushes to the door, telling Toby to open it. As Toby hesitates, he sees Dracula inside the cabin. Just as Dracula is about to strike Toby, both Clemens and Elliot catch a glimpse of the vampire. Struggling to open the door, the crew finally bursts in, only to find Toby unconscious on the floor, with bite marks on his neck. Later, Ulgarin is tied to the ship's mast on the deck. As the crew talks to him, the sunlight hits Ulgarin's body, causing him to burst into flames and die. That night, the watch duty falls to Abraham. While he is guarding the deck, Joseph attacks him and escapes the ship in a lifeboat, abandoning everyone else. Meanwhile, Anna and Clemens, determined to find Dracula, open and examine the crates in the cargo hold. Though they find soil in every crate, one stands out from the rest, inside of which they discover a black walking cane belonging to Dracula. As Joseph jumps from the lifeboat, he stops when he sees a large creature soaring through the air, resembling a massive bird. That creature is Dracula, who swoops down and attacks Joseph. Later, when Abraham wakes up and rings the bell, the crew rushes to the deck, where they all see a lifeboat drifting in the sea, empty of Joseph. The following morning, as they prepare to dispose of Toby's body in a canvas shroud, Captain Elliot arrives and mentions that he saw Toby moving. When he pulls back the canvas to reveal Toby's face, Toby suddenly rises up and grabs Elliot. At that moment, sunlight hits Toby's body, igniting him in flames and scorching Elliot's face. Amidst the chaos, Wojciech and Clemens come together to throw the flailing, burning Toby into the sea. Later, as Elliot and the others devise a plan to kill Dracula, Anna insists that they must sink the ship along with him. However, Wojciech strongly opposes this action, and ultimately, after Clemens provides clarification, he also agrees to the plan. Later, when Clemens goes to Elliot's cabin to discuss the plan, he learns that Elliot is preparing to shoot him. However, after hearing Anna's words upon her arrival, Elliot refrains from taking action. While Clemens and the others are on the lookout on the ship's deck, Dracula swoops down and attacks Wojciech and Abraham, killing Abraham in the process. As Wojciech quickly tries to escape from the top of the mast, Dracula strikes him, causing him to fall into the storage room, where he breaks his leg. Despite his injuries, Wojciech struggles to rise and attempts to create a hole in the ship to sink it. However, Dracula arrives and strikes him down, killing him. At the same time, Clemens finds the body of Wojciech and takes the axe Wojciech had with him before heading to look for Elliot. By then, Elliot is on the deck, steering the helm. As Clemens arrives, Dracula appears and strikes down Elliot, killing him. Clemens sees Elliot's lifeless body and begins to shout from the deck. Dracula then swoops down and attacks Clemens, preparing to kill him. But Anna arrives and shoots Dracula, forcing him to release Clemens. However, Dracula then turns on Anna, biting her and drinking her blood. In that moment, Clemens strikes Dracula with the axe. Dracula, in response, throws Anna aside and grabs hold of Clemens. As Dracula grabs hold of Clemens, preparing to drink his blood, Anna cuts a rope that was attached to a sail. Due to both the rope being cut and the fierce storm winds, the sail swings free and hits Dracula, pinning him between the mast and the sail. Seizing this moment, Clemens and Anna leap into the sea, managing to grab hold of a broken piece of the ship floating nearby. As the storm drives the Demeter toward England, a lighthouse worker spots the ship. Eventually, the ship washes ashore, and Dracula escapes from his place of confinement. The next morning, as dawn approaches, Anna and Clemens are still clinging to a piece of the broken ship, drifting toward the English coast. In those final moments, Anna bids Clemens farewell, and when the sunlight finally falls upon her, she bursts into flames and is consumed. Later, Clemens reaches England and goes to a bar in London, where he asks the waitress for directions to the Carfax mansion. He sits at a table, sketching a portrait of Anna. Suddenly, he catches a glimpse of Dracula and immediately chases after him, leaving the mystery unresolved as the movie ends. Did you enjoy this movie? Stay tuned for more recaps and special features with Cinema Recap. Share your thoughts and questions in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon for more videos. See you soon. Goodbye.